Good morning, everyone. Today is Monday, September 27th. And I don't know why this is, but I spend a lot of time thinking about why we say certain things and why we call things what we call them. And if you remember last week, we talked about all the different ways that people say goodbye around the world, and how a lot of them include a wish that God be with you, adios, adieu, vaya con Dios. We talked about those and then looked at our word goodbye and remembered that it comes from a phrase that means God be with you and has evolved into goodbye. Yesterday at church, we talked about the name of God. When God revealed God's name to us, it is I am, I was, and I will be. And that it's important to remember exactly who God is by what we call God. And we use the example of the Lord's Prayer when we begin the prayer, when Jesus told us to begin the prayer, hallowed be God's name, hallowed be thy name. Now we should know what God's name is if we're going to say that. Well, today, for whatever reason, I was thinking about a term that's not so godlike, perhaps, and that is for Pete's sake. Often we use that word or that phrase as a phrase of frustration. Like, hurry up for Pete's sake, or slow down for Pete's sake, or calm down for Pete's sake. And I got to thinking, where on earth does that phrase come from? So I looked it up, and most of the definitions I found for that, most of them said the same thing, so I'm going to believe it. And it said that for Pete's sake is actually a substitution for saying for God's sake, or even for Christ's sake. And because those can sometimes sound vulgar, especially when we say for Christ's sake, the word Pete, Saint Peter, for Pete's sake was substituted a long time ago. And that's a pretty neat explanation. But if we think that that phrase originally meant for God's sake, then even these admonitions and statements of frustration, like slow down for Pete's sake, slow down and take a break for God's sake, can actually become very good advice. For a lot of times, we spend a lot of time up in our own heads, or we spend a lot of time outside of ourselves thinking that we need to accomplish a whole lot. And today's Monday morning, and no matter, I think, if we work or if we have today off or if we're retired, we still compose a list of things that we need to get done now that a week is beginning. And so maybe we should remember the phrase for Pete's sake and the admonition to slow down for God's sake. Slow down and let God have a say in what we're doing. Slow down and listen for God in our lives. Slow down, let God take the lead. I like to remember this when I'm simply praying, whatever time of day it is, to slow down in my own speech, and after I talk to God, let God have a word in edgewise. Let God talk back. Be quiet for a minute, John, and listen for God. So my prayer for you today is the simple yet effective expression to slow down, take a break for God's sake, and let God into your lives. Amen.